Okay, welcome to Dictate Boxing. I'm going to assume a lot of you, or most of you, have watched the press conference on Monday night. Obviously, the comeback of Tyson Fury fighting Arslanbek Makhmudov, April 11th at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, live on Netflix. And to be honest, yeah, it was good to see Tyson Fury back, talking behind the mic. He gave it a good go to try bring something to the press conference, but at the end of the day, he didn't really have the dance partner to bite back and go back and forth with, did he? And so that sort of left another talking point being the highlight of that press conference. Obviously, Mr. Big John Fury taking over before the presser even started, and in pure John Fury fashion, taking a lot of the attention between him and Carl Froch. But look, I'll get into that in a minute. First, I want to talk about some of the other things that have been going on inside boxing. I'm going to start with Mr. Devin and Bill Haney, who have come out in the past few days on Twitter or on their socials being very firm for the call-outs of Mr. Xander Zayas at 154 pounds. And initial thoughts are that they're not just, you know, talking shit on Twitter just for the sake of talking shit. I think it seems pretty obvious they're really pushing with legitimate intent to have this fight against Xander Zayas at 154 pounds. And you got to look at it and say, look, I know Devin Haney catches a lot of heat. He does. I've given him a lot of heat in the past as well. But you can't deny he's about it, isn't he? And what would that make him? A 5-weight world champion if he was to go up? Obviously, Xander Zayas is a unified world champion at 154 pounds, the most stacked division in pound-for-pound boxing. He's a very, very good world champion. He's not just someone that's just carrying the belts like some other fighters in the sport. I think what it was Xander Zayas and Josh Kelly sort of saying a couple of things to each other or about each other, and then talking about having a fight in New York, obviously a unification fight. There'd be 3 belts on the line after Josh Kelly beat Bakram a couple of weeks ago. And then Devin Haney basically came in and said, I want that fight. It's a bigger fight, me and you, in America, and you can't lie. It is, isn't it? With no disrespect to Josh Kelly, Devin Haney's a much bigger name, and it would be him going up to another weight class. And can I see that happening next? I kind of can. But at the same time, I feel like Eddie Hearn has come out and he has said that that is a fight they really want for Josh Kelly. And I feel like if an Eddie Hearn really pushes for that, I think Xander Zayas would be more inclined to take a fight against Josh Kelly, a unification fight to get a 3rd belt, than he would be to welcome a Devin Haney. Although you could argue the money would be bigger for a Devin Haney fight, and it would, wouldn't it? So maybe he'd take that option instead. I don't know. I can certainly see a unification with Josh Kelly being first. And if Xander Zayas was to beat Josh Kelly, Devin Haney to move up again and fight Xander Zayas. I'm not going to lie, I feel like Devin beats Xander. I don't think there's that much of a difference in size anymore. And when it comes to who's the better boxer, I think it's fair to say Devin Haney's the better boxer. So yeah, I think if Devin does this, people do need to just give him his props. To go up another to 154 pounds, look, I think there's a ceiling for the likes of a Shakur, a Devin, to get up to. I think that ceiling would be a Boots or a Virgil or even a Fundora standing at 6'6". I think that's sort of the ceiling, isn't it? But I'm not gonna lie, I think Xander Zayas, that's an option there for Devin Haney. I do think that him and Bill Haney are certainly looking at that as a real potential fight. Look, I've not yet touched on the big news that came out, I think it was last week. Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois, May 9th. I think it's going to be in Manchester, but I've seen potentially the O2 Arena or Manchester. I'm pretty sure it's Manchester though. Massive fight. I know some people are coming out and saying Daniel Dubois doesn't necessarily deserve this title shot. I think you kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, look at the run that he'll now be on. I know 2 of them are losses, but them 2 losses are against Alexander Usyk. I think a lot of us would agree. Usyk, there's no shame in losing to Usyk. An all-time great already. But when you look at it and you really dissect it, Alexander Usyk won. Then Jarrell Miller, as a massive underdog, went and won that fight. Filip Hrgović, massive underdog, won that fight. Anthony Joshua filled out Wembley Stadium, knocked him out. And then a rematch against Alexander Usyk at Wembley Stadium again. Obviously lost that fight. And now going into another world title fight against Fabio Wardley in a massive all-British domestic heavyweight fight. And fair play to Wardley as well. I mean, he didn't have to take a fight against Daniel Dubois next. He could have gone in against... I mean, he could have had a fight against Derek Chisora. They're talking about that. And to opt for Daniel Dubois off the back of beating Joseph Parker for your first world title defence if he wins this fight, you do have to give him his credit. And I think a lot of us are now looking at Fabio Wardley in the UK as being someone that's really emerging as a star in boxing now. And certainly if he goes and sparks Daniel Dubois, because in my opinion, this does not go 12 rounds. Someone's getting knocked out. If he does go and knock out Daniel Dubois, you know, he's seriously in the mix for a massive fight against Tyson Fury. Obviously, if Fury beats Makhmudov and let's say AJ doesn't come back. And for me, I think it's probably a 50-50 fight, isn't it? In terms of, look, people question Daniel Dubois' heart. I don't know, I think that's a little bit too harsh to say he gives up just because of the fight. Look, the Joe Joyce one happened a long time ago. It is a behind the closed doors COVID fight. I'm not going to give him an excuse, but it was a very inexperienced Daniel Dubois then. The circumstances were so different, and look how he bounced back afterwards. I mean, the heart he showed against Jarrell Miller, to have that second wind in that fight, the height he showed against Filip Hrgović, and the bottle he's showing to go straight in against a Fabio Wardley who's very, very dangerous. Someone that does have heart, someone that is not just going to give up. Fabio Wardley's certainly that, so he's shown the flip side of that. But I guess some people would argue maybe Daniel Dubois is a better boxer. Maybe, but I think Fabio Wardley's really improving. In terms of his boxing ability, I think he's really improving really quickly. And then Wardley obviously has, you know, the chin factor, the punch factor, the fact that he is probably the hardest puncher in boxing right now. But Daniel Dubois is also a very heavy-handed puncher as well. So look, we'll discuss that closer to the time. Let's get into the main part of the video, and that is all around Mr. John Fury going at the Cobra, Mr. Carl Froch. I mean, anybody saying that Carl Froch was bottling it, what are you on about? Look, he's there doing his debut for Netflix on a platform, about to go live and broadcast, and he's got John Fury shouting, "Where are you? Where are you?" I mean, John, he's literally stood right in front of you. I have no doubt if John tried to actually go for him and go up onto that platform, Carl's not going to stand there, is he? I mean, this is a Hall of Famer, a former world champion, one of the best that this country's produced in terms of boxing. Comparatively, you've got, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it's an old man who had nowhere near the career of a Carl Froch. And I think to imply that John Fury stands a chance in a fist fight against Carl Froch is utter madness. It's just not going to happen, is it? And Carl Froch has come out and he said, he said his piece on his YouTube channel, and he said, listen, if you really want to go, we'll talk to Mams Taylor and Misfits and we'll get it cracking. Let's see if John Fury's about it, because we've heard Joe Egan come out a number of times for over a year now. You know, similar age, someone that has, you know, a better pedigree back when he was fighting. You know, still known as Mike Tyson's hardest ever sparring partner. Mr. Joe Egan, he's eager for that fight. You know, they apparently had Misfits, Mams Taylor, KSI, all of them there backing Joe Egan. Had the money on the table there for John Fury. John Fury's come out and he's saying, look, I never back down for no one. I will fight anytime, anywhere. But he turned that down. And quickly on John Fury, I do actually think he's good for boxing. I think he's really good for the sport. I think some of the things he says, the really old school mentality, I think the younger generation, you know, the generation I'm in, some people really need to take little bits from what he says. I know sometimes they can be a bit volatile, a bit erratic, of course, but there are some things that he does say, and it's like some of the young people in this generation do need to take little bits from what he does say. But when you're going around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium screaming and shouting at a Hall of Fame boxer, a legend of the sport, stood next to Lennox Lewis, and you're saying everybody in this place, no one would be working, making money right now if it weren't for the spunk in my balls. Look, obviously, you know, if Tyson Fury was never born, then none of them would be there doing a press conference for a fight. But a lot has had to happen for everybody in that building to be where they are. I mean, Tyson Fury had to be one hell of a boxer to be in there and be the star he is. I mean, if he was like John Fury, in terms of boxing ability, he wouldn't be in there talking about a fight to sell out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Makhmudov, would it? And it was when he shouted it over the balcony, and the camera sort of like pans down, or like zooms down, and Carl Froch just stood there next to Lennox Lewis. You know, no one here in this building would be here if it weren't for the spunk of my balls. Lennox Lewis is the greatest boxer in British boxing history, so, you know, ahead of Tyson Fury for sure. And I couldn't help but just feel a little bit sorry for Tyson Fury. I felt that in the past with press conferences between Tommy Fury and KSI. And John's just there. Look, obviously it helped massively for promotion, so you do have to bear in mind some of it is probably exaggerated to help sell the fight, of course. And John Fury's amazing at doing it. But I do think sometimes he does cross a line, and he did a little bit here. And yeah, I do feel a little bit bad for Tyson, you know. This is before Tyson's about to go on to stage, having not fought in over a year. And he's there to speak to the media, to try sell this fight. And his dad's going off, you know, kicking up a fuss, shouting at Carl Froch in the stadium. You know, I don't know if you've seen the clip, I'm going to assume you did, of when John walked past Steve Bunce.
What are you looking at? Don't look at me, so book you right in the fucking nose.
I'm your friend, John.
I'm your my fucking
I'm your friend, John.
Now, what are we doing? Steve Bunce does not deserve to get talked to like shit by John Fury. I get it. If you want to go off and sound off at Carl Froch and say what you're going to say, Carl Froch can handle himself. Carl Froch comes out and speaks his opinion on his YouTube channel. I think that's fine to some degree. There is still a line because you're saying, where are you? And he's stood right in front of you and you're not doing anything to him. But anyways, there's another thing, going and sticking it on Buncey, who's well respected in the boxing world, who's just stood there innocently watching what's going on. I mean, you're kicking up a fuss, creating this scene, expect cameras to be in your face, expect people to be watching what you're doing. And to walk past Buncey and, you know, say what he said to him is just mad disrespectful. But so since then, Joe Egan has come out and he's put out another couple of videos in response to this, saying, look, John, you're a bully, and I wanna get in the ring with you and put you in your place. John Fury went on a run and he did a video talking to Carl Froch and Joe Egan, saying that he'd, you know, if he saw them out at a venue one night, he'd knock them both out in the same night. He said he'd be willing to go to prison again for beating him up. Like, what is going on? The thing is, you do have to put into context, John Fury is a very old school man. If he hears of people disrespecting him, he's gonna come out and it's gonna boil his blood. It is. But I just think, if you're gonna be there in public, in front of all the media, all these people there, bearing in mind Tyson Fury is a mega star. Your son is a superstar who has a lot of young fans who look up to him. And if you're going around doing that, you know, how does that look? It doesn't look good. It's not okay to be going around screaming and shouting and threatening people. But anyways, look, I'm gonna leave it at that. Despite all this, I still am a big fan of John Fury, because I do think sometimes he is just comedy gold, isn't he? He is blockbuster sometimes, and I do think having a bit of John Fury here and there a couple of times a year at a boxing event, it does make for good entertainment. Look, I'm here talking to you about it and you're here listening to me talking about it, so obviously it does bring traction to his son's fights. But I do think there's a line, and I do think he slightly went over that line at the presser on Monday. But anyways, go follow Dictate Boxing on all socials. The links are down below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to Dictate Boxing if you are new around here, and we will speak very soon.